Over the years, I've interviewed several guests who have had life-threatening situations while ferrying an airplane over oceans or across the country. But I recently learned of a flight from Kentucky to California that ended up taking 2 weeks and involved something the veteran pilot had heard about in ground school but had never expected to encounter in real life. Crown Vic crew cars, incredibly rapid ice accumulation, a downwind landing, and vomit. It's the story on this episode of The Rider Report. Hello everyone, I'm Rob Ryder, and welcome to episode 17 of AvBrief's Rider Report podcast, brought to you by Avemco Insurance. My guest today is Bob Carlton, former rocket scientist, award-winning airshow pilot, and also the man who was the test pilot for the Subsonic's JSX-2 mini-jet. What was supposed to be a leisurely trip to ferry a Skybolt aerobatic biplane to California for an acquaintance turned out to be quite an adventure, one in which he learned some good lessons. Oh, and how did vomit play a part in this trip? He'll tell us right after this message from Avemco. Based on Avemco claims data, did you know that 10% of accidents happen while taxiing? Does this number surprise you? Avemco Insurance Company values safety and believes strongly in continuous pilot training and education to help prevent these accidents and promote safer skies for everyone. That's why they sponsor the Fast Team Wings program and the Rider Report podcast. Avemco rewards safer pilots with premium credits through their Safety Rewards program. Earn an automatic 5% off by mentioning you're a Rider Report listener. Call 800-353-9089 for a free quote or visit avemco.com/Rider Report today. Premium credits are subject to underwriting guidelines, including Avemco recognized training and memberships. Now, the Rider Report. My guest on the program today is Bob Carlton. I've known him for a long time. He is a former rocket scientist. He's an aircraft designer. He's an aircraft builder. He is a test pilot. He is an author and a poet, and I don't know what all. Bob Carlton, welcome to the Rider Report.
Hey, Rob, it's great to be here. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. I want to get into this story about this sequence of ferry flights that, even though I've read the story, it is still one of the most convoluted ferry flight sequences and ordeals that I've ever heard of. And it's a great story, but you get to tell that. But before we do, I've known you for a long time, but when we met, you were already an established star performer in the airshow business in your Super Salto jet-powered sailplane. But how did it start for you did it start when you were a kid?
My mom says when I was 4 years old, she rescued me off the refrigerator with my arms stretched out, ready to jump off. I knew I could fly.
No.
So when I was a kid, I knew I could fly. Then I went to school and they told me I couldn't. And it wasn't, when I was 19, I bought a hang glider from an ad in the paper for $25. And it had been sitting in the sun for years, and my mom helped me sew patches on the on the holes in the sail.
Wow.
And I went out and taught myself how to fly. And from there, I went on to airplanes, sailplanes, helicopters. Roger Bias, famous airshow helicopter pilot, taught me to fly helicopters, a little bit of paragliding. I've done just about everything with an aircraft.
You have proved your worth not only to the aviation industry, but to the aviation, the airshow public, spectators around the world, with the most unique sailplane act ever, because it's got two parts. You self-launch, and then you do, with engine at idle, a gorgeous and graceful routine, and then you push the throttle forward. What happens then?
Well, get down low, bring the throttle up, and perform like a real low-level jet show.
And you do things with that glider, that sailplane, that are really not intended to do it, like the 4-point roll that you do and the tail slide. But that was the super salto that you flew for a long time, and you did that one pass upside down that you called the Predator Pass. But that aircraft is no longer part of your show, is it?
That's correct. It was just getting old. It had probably 1.5 million miles in the trailer. And it was time to think about doing something different. And so I had an opportunity where two things happened. I was able to sell one aircraft and buy another. And so I bought an MDM Fox, which is a competition aerobatic 2-seat aircraft. And I figured if more is better, too much is just right. And so I put 2 jet engines on this one.
Oh my gosh.
It is an absolute rocket ship.
Are those the same engines that you had on the first one, those TJ100s, those Czech-built engines?
That's correct, yeah. So it's got 500 pounds of thrust on an aircraft that weighs less than 1,000 pounds with very little drag.
My goodness. And what is the wingspan in feet and meters?
Wingspan's about 50 feet, which is 16 meters, 16 and a half. Somebody can check my math, but somewhere in that area.
Well, the fact that it's 50 feet and the fact that you can do a high-energy aerobatic routine in it, even a 4-point roll with a 50-foot wingspan is not an easy thing to accomplish.
It's definitely an interesting aircraft. It still maintains a lot of its glider characteristics. But with that much power, I can do a whole lot of things most gliders never thought of.
You're a crowd pleaser. Well, the glider really doesn't occupy a major share of your story, but let's go back a few years. Tell me when it was, because when it took place, I think, has a great deal to do with how things developed and how you got in a corner on a couple of occasions. When did this start? And tell me the story of the ferry flight to end all ferry flights.
I believe it started in 1999. I was at an air show in Arizona, and an old acquaintance walked up, someone that I hadn't seen in probably 10 years. And so, the usual pleasantries and how you been and everything. And he was flying a Cessna, I believe a 210. And he said, at the time, I had a Skybolt biplane that I used as a tow plane and did a air show routine in that as well.
The Skybolt is how many horsepower and how big is it compared to a Pitts?
It's a little bigger than a Pitts. So the Skybolt, the Acro Duster, Marquardt Charger, all kind of very similar aircraft, about 25% bigger than a Pitts.
Okay.
And I also had a trailer that carried both of these. It carried the Salto and the Skybolt.
Oh my
so that's how I got them around from one air show to another, but that's a whole nother story. But anyway, so we talked for a little while, and he said he was looking for something a little more exciting than his 210, and said a Skybolt is one of the items on his list, and one of the aircraft on his list. And as you often do in a conversation like this, I said something like, well, if you buy one, let me know. Maybe I'll help you fly it home, because he said he didn't have much tail wheel time. And so then we shook hands and we parted company, and that's kind of the last I thought about it. Until in February, I got a phone call that went something like, hi, I bought one. And I said, bought one what? Who is this? And he said, this is Don. Not his real name, by the way. Everything's been moved around a little bit, because by the end of the story, you'll see why.
Oh, we're going to protect the innocent here.
Yeah, exactly. And he said, it's Don. I bought that Skybolt. And you said you'd help me fly it home. And I told the guy we'd pick it up in 2 weeks. And I was sort of shocked. And I said, well, I think I can get some time off. And he said, okay, great. I'll make some. I said, where is it? He said, Kentucky.
And where were you? You were
in Albuquerque, where
Albuquerque,
I live.
Yeah.
And he said, great, I'll make some reservations. And we flew into, I think originally I told you Nashville, but I'm pretty sure it was Cincinnati. We flew into Cincinnati, and the seller had a Blanca Viking, and he picked us up and flew us back to his house. And I cannot remember what airport it was. I believe it was in northern Kentucky. Could have been any one or several in that region.
You bet.
We stayed at that gentleman's house that night. And the next morning, we went to pick the airplane up, and the plan was to get an early start. I was going to take a few laps around the pattern with the owner.
In the Skybolt?
In the new Skybolt, yeah. And that way I could just get a chance to get used to it, because it was a little different than mine. Mine was a 4-cylinder, very lightweight. And this one was a 6-cylinder with a whole lot of ancient heavy instruments. And it had an extra bungee on the gear because it was so heavy, very stiff-legged. So I wanted to go around the pattern a few times with the owner. But we got out there that morning, and there had been a little bit of an ice storm that night. And the runway was covered with ice. So we decided to go to the hangar, go get some breakfast first, wait for the ice to clear. We went to the hangar. Don wanted to see his new aircraft, and he just unlatched and opened the canopy without the seller there. And it's like a Pitts canopy. It has to be slid back a little bit before it opens, and he didn't know that. And he just wrenched it open, and it broke the hinge.
Wow. Thank heavens it didn't break the plexiglass.
No, it didn't. But it had to be welded. But there was a welder there on the field, so not a catastrophe. So we set about getting that fixed, and he went ahead and they signed the paperwork and looked everything else over, and everything looked fine. And it was a beautiful aircraft, which you're always a little concerned about a sight unseen aircraft. You're going to fly halfway across the country. But it was a nice looking aircraft. So finally, by afternoon, we were ready to get going, but the ice had cleared by then.
But you hadn't had your time around the patch, had you?
No. And if we took any more time, we might as well wait another day. Oh, the other thing that the night before at the seller's house, we were watching the weather. And there was a huge storm battering the California coast and headed east. So we realized we were headed for Northern California. First thing we realized is we're probably not going to get there, but we would like to get as far as maybe Amarillo, where we could catch a Southwest Airlines flight out and have a place to put the airplane and come back. But at the rate we were going, we needed to get moving. So without taking any laps around the pattern, we got in. I did a flight plan the old-fashioned way. Remember, this is when GPS was still brand new. And
a lot of paper.
Don had a GPS, but this isn't your nice moving map, pick things with your fingers. This is the old-fashioned, put things in with up, down, left, right arrows. And by the time he got a flight plan punched in, and all it gave you was direction to the airport and distance. And
oh boy.
It was pretty primitive. So by the time he got all that punched in, it's getting late, and we headed off. The original plan was to stay with some friends in Muskogee, Oklahoma, and it was obvious we weren't going to make Muskogee. So we made it to Poplar Ridge or Poplar Bluff or something like that, Arkansas, and got there just slightly after dark, and crow hopped the thing to a landing on that stiff-legged gear and managed to bring it in.
Was this airplane certified for flying at night?
I believe it was. I think it
good.
had lights. I can't remember for sure, but let's go with yes. We don't know who's listening. And
I think the statute of limitations may have run out on that.
It had everything known to man inside it. It had to have had lights. So we got it tied down and got the classic ex-police Crown Vic with about half a turn of play in the steering wheel.
Of course.
I pointed it toward the street, and with a hearty coming about captain set sail down Main Street, driving the thing like a big boat to the nearest hotel. And so the next morning, we headed out. It was a beautiful morning. It was absolutely crystal clear. We climbed up to 10,000 feet, and it was surprisingly warm. So we're cruising along, and this thing didn't have much of a heater, if any heater at all. We're cruising along at 10,000 feet, and it's actually very pleasant. So we're really enjoying that. We're going to have a really nice flight. We made it to Muskogee and pulled in for fuel. And as we descended, it got cold. It got really cold. So by the time we were in the pattern, we were freezing our fannies off.
Was this all VMC all the way?
Absolutely. Just clear as a bell for whatever it was, 500, 600, 800 miles. But I mean, it was clear in a million everywhere. The only weather was that storm that was working its way now across New Mexico, Arizona, and starting to come into Texas. So we warmed up in Muskogee, hopped back in, climbed back up into the warm air, and continued west. It was obvious we weren't going to make Amarillo. The storm was into the Texas Panhandle at this point, and we could see it up ahead now. And this was a little bit like...
When you say you could see it up ahead, were you looking at towering cumes 75, 100 miles away?
It was a wall. It was just a solid wall of roiling clouds up to who knows how tall. It wasn't really cumulus. This was winter, so it was more just solid, low, mean, full of all kinds of nasty cold stuff going on.
Oh boy.
But it was so clear where we were, I didn't feel bad running right up against it because it was very obvious where it was. It was here, and as long as we were here, it was clear in a million behind us. So we were headed west. It was coming east. I felt a little like Indiana Jones headed into some mythical creature that he's going to try to grab his whip and his hat and turn around and run away. We're coming into Shamrock, Texas, which is about 80 miles east of Amarillo. And the storm, it's a race. The Shamrock's here, the storm's here, we're here. And I'm just coming in. I'm not even going to make a pattern. I'm just going to make a left turn because the wind in the Texas Panhandle blows out of the south so much. All the trees lean north. And this is real. I'm not making this up. Drive through around Amarillo, all the trees lean north because the wind is always from the south. And so I'm coming in from the east. And I just make a left turn. And I'm going to line up for the runway. Figure if we have any problems, I'm going to hit the throttle. We're going to turn left and just go back out to Sayre, Oklahoma, which is about 40 miles to the east. What I didn't realize was that storm was throwing rain out the top. And it was throwing the rain not straight down under the clouds, but out the top of the clouds and to the east. And if you remember in ground school, they taught you about strong inversion, where it's warm aloft, cold below, and the rain falls through the warm air as rain, hits the cold air and begins to cool. And it can actually get down below 32 degrees, and it wants to freeze, but the air is clean. There's no nucleus to form a crystal, and it super cools. And so it gets well below freezing, but stays liquid until it hits something. And that's what we found. And they taught you about this in ground school and told you to be careful, watch out for it, because it's really dangerous. And we're going, yeah. How often does that happen? Well, that was the day it happened. So I'm coming in about the time I'm ready to turn final. We start hitting this freezing, super cool rain. And it starts forming ice on the airplane. And this isn't ice like that thin frosty ice you get coming through a thin layer of cirrus clouds. Stratus clouds, thank you. This is hitting the airplane like somebody is throwing honey-covered peanuts at us. Because as soon as that raindrop hits, it hits the aircraft, and before it can even flatten out, it's frozen. And so there's these giant lumps of rain and ice forming on the airplane, on the leading edges, on the wires. The prop is slinging this stuff everywhere. The engine is shaking like a puppy passing a peach pit from the imbalance on the prop.
Oh, gosh.
And I can't see out the windshield.
But you are still at this point legally VMC.
Yes. It was all legal except the airplane just wasn't. It was getting bad quickly. But yeah. I'm on final. But I said, hey, I'm going around. I went full throttle, and with all the extra ice, the inefficiency of the prop, the inefficiency of the wing, the extra weight, I wasn't going around. We were still coming down. Luckily, I crabbed just a little bit, and I could see out the side of the windshield. I could see the runway, And we did have a little bit of a tailwind, which is the first time Texas has ever seen a wind out of the north. And it pushed us far enough that we made it to the runway. Now we land on this runway that's covered in about an inch of this gnarly ice, and somehow managed to bring the thing to a stop. I still hadn't figured out how to land it. Bring the thing to a stop. There's only 2 buildings on this whole airport. We taxied to the left. There's a hangar, small hangar, and a little building next to it with a phone. So we jump out. First thing we did was we checked the sliding door on the hangar. It was unlocked. So we lifted the door, we pushed the airplane in. Then we went next door where there should be a telephone, but all the power was out. The ice had taken out power everywhere around us. So we're standing there wondering what to do, because it's probably 3 miles or more into Shamrock on an icy road. And we hear a crunchy sound coming down the road. Here comes a car. And it's the man that owns the hangar had come to get his propane heater since his power was out at home. And so we told him, hey, we put the airplane in your hangar. Hope that's okay. He said, absolutely, glad you did that. We don't want to leave it out in the weather. And he took us to a hotel in Shamrock where we spent 3 days with no power.
3 days.
Well, two nights, parts of 3 days.
But you lost a whole lot of time. You couldn't get out of Shamrock, right?
Right, we were stuck. The ice was thick. There was no way to get back on the runway. The weather was really bad. And so we sat there in a hotel room. We walked across the ice over to a truck stop. We each bought a book. We sat there the first day and read a book, and then we swapped books, and read the other book, and then we went and played poker with some other people that were stranded there. The hotel was serving whatever food they had. Their refrigerator was out, but there was plenty of ice around to stock the refrigerator.
Oh my
keep the
gosh!
Food cold. Anyway, after 2 nights there, the weather cleared, the ice cleared up, and we took off, headed for my home field in Moriarty, New Mexico, just east of Albuquerque.
One of the sailplane capitals of the world.
Absolutely, yes. One of the best soaring places in the entire world, but not this particular day.
Uh-oh.
So we stopped had lunch with some friends in Tucumcari, New Mexico, just west of the Texas state line.
Spent the night there once.
Yeah, and they also used to do an air show for years. They had an air show. They had the Canadian snowbirds there, probably 15 out of 20 years that we did that show.
That's amazing.
And we stopped there. The weather was beautiful, and we headed on west. And the terrain rises rapidly as you come out of Tucumcari.
Yes,
it's
it
about
does.
4,000 feet, and it comes up to about 7,000 feet at Santa Rosa, New Mexico. And from there, it drops down to 6,000 into the valley where Moriarty is. But that high terrain tends to create a little bit of a venturi. And so we're flying along, the wind is picking up, getting stronger, the ground is covered with snow, and I realized that where we had been doing 120 knots, we're now down to about 35 or 40 knots.
Across the ground.
Yeah, across the ground because of the headwind.
Oh my
So we
goodness.
dropped down low, and we're down to the point now that I'm afraid if we go any lower, we're going to start picking up snow, blowing snow on the wheels. And again, thinking, well, if we have to, we can turn around and go back to Tucumcari. But once we got past Santa Rosa and that Venturi effect settled down, the wind settled a bit, and we went on. We flew over Moriarty, covered in snow. Nobody had plowed the runway. So we kept on going to Albuquerque, went through to Harris Canyon, which is another place where you might get really bad winds and turbulence, with the Sandia Mountains on the right, the Manzano Mountains on the left, and a narrow canyon in between. Surprisingly, that was an easy trip. We landed Albuquerque in absolutely calm wind. We put the airplane in a hangar at Cutter Aviation, and Don caught a flight back home to California, and Lori came and picked me up, and we finished that leg of the journey.
You have used up over a week of time getting that far on a flight that you had expected to make in a day and a half, I suppose.
Well, it was going to be probably 3 days.
Okay,
but yeah,
3 days.
We're well beyond 3 days, and we've only made Albuquerque.
And read some good books in the process.
Yeah, read a couple of books. I have no idea. There was whatever was available at the truck stop.
Then your next leg is going to be from New Mexico and try to make it all the way to Northern California. Is that the next leg?
Yes.
But that's more than just a single hop. You're going to have to stop for gas, right?
Yeah. But that wasn't too bad because now we're in my backyard. We're in the Mountain West. This is where I'm used to flying. I'm comfortable with the conditions and the weather, and my former airshow colleague, Mike Stogner, who I know you've met.
Of course.
He used to fly my Skybolt, and he was with me on the road for many years. He decided to come along just for the adventure, thinking that it's not really going to be much of an adventure.
In what airplane?
He was in the Skybolt with me.
Oh, okay. Okay, just the two of you because the owner has gone home. That's right.
So we made arrangements that we were going to meet him at Barstow. So I-40 from Albuquerque to Southern California is basically follow Interstate 40, and then we'll go through the mountains, basically the south end of the mountains, and turn north and run up the Central Valley up into Northern California. That's the plan.
Piece of cake.
Yeah, absolutely. and the weather's beautiful, so we take off and we're flying past all the nice red rocks on the west side of New Mexico and into Arizona. We pulled into Kingman, got some gas, and we keep going. As we get to Southern California, we run into something that only Southern California is really good at, and that is just massive fog. Not real thick, heavy fog, but just enough that it's difficult. And we're above it, and we can look straight down. We can see the interstate. And I know that the Barstow Airport is right next to the interstate. So we just flew along just north of the interstate till we saw the airport, and we circled down and we landed. And Don was there with his 210 and another friend, and we made arrangements. He would just lead us to his airport. I think it was Livermore, and we decided that his friend wanted to fly in the Skybolt, so he got in with me. Mike got in with Don, and we took off.
So you're going to follow a 210?
Yeah, and he said, "Don't worry, the fog's going to go away before we get there. Long before we get there, the fog will be gone." So we take off. We climb up through the fog in formation, get up on top.
Let me ask you this: when you through the fog, was it still 3 miles visibility, at least straight down?
Oh yeah, I could see straight down, and I could see actually a pretty good cone below me, and it was clear and a million above. So it was all good. And if I had thought to get a sectional and check some landmarks along the way, I think we would have been fine. Or if I had been following the freeway or something like that, it would have been okay. But
you were on the wing of a 210.
Yeah, I had a flight lead that knew the way. And he had all sorts of fancy gadgets in his airplane that the Skybolt didn't have. So we pop up above the fog, and I'm on his wing, and then very slowly, he is just pulling away from me. He's set the 210 up at whatever a 210 cruises at, which is way faster than a Skybolt.
Uh-oh.
And he's gone. And the radio in the Skybolt is, it needed some work.
Should we say it was marginal at best?
Marginal at best.
Okay.
And I'm on the radio trying to get hold of him, and I can't reach him. And so he just disappears. So I just keep flying that heading, knowing that, trusting that at some point the fog's going to go away like he said it would, and I would be able to get the sectional and figure out where I was.
But you were still going dead reckoning. Did you know where all the airspace was? You're going into some of the most complex airspace anywhere in the world out there.
Let's just say yes, I knew.
And you weren't talking to anybody.
Now we're still east, so we're not into the LA complex or anything. We will eventually get up towards San Francisco, but at that point, there really wasn't much airspace to worry about.
San Jose, Sacramento, Oakland.
Yeah. Yeah, that whole massive complex of airspace where it's at some points you can be in anything from class A to class G, depending on your altitude and what time
Exactly.
it is. So I don't know what to do. We keep going. I know behind me is fog that I may or may not be able to find an airport. So we just keep going. And it turns out Mike had hopped in the 210 and fallen asleep.
Oh, gosh.
And he woke up after half an hour and looked around, didn't see me. And he said, "Hey, where's Bob?" "Oh, I don't know." "Well, how fast are we going?" "Oh, we're doing like 160 knots.
Uh-oh.
The Skybolt cruises 120, maybe, I don't remember. So finally, after about an hour of this, I see a dot appear ahead of us, and they've turned around and they came back and found us. And he lowered his cruise speed, and we flew together up into Northern California. The fog did go away, which is good because by the time we got there, it was dark. Yeah, so I got to do another night landing in the new Skybolt, which by this point I was getting better.
I bet you were.
So we finally landed, and everything's good. So that should be the end of the story, but it's not quite.
It's not?
No.
Oh, now I don't know what's coming up.
So the next day, the other thing I said was, well, let me give you a little checkout in your airplane, since I've got the most time in it now between the two of us. And he did have a tail wheel rating, so I wasn't actually acting as an instructor. I was just being an assistant pilot, if you will.
Gotcha.
So we put him in the front seat, and we went up and did some patterns, and he did pretty good on the landings, no problem there. So I said, let's go ahead and put you in the back seat, because the front seat didn't have any brakes. And so on the first few landings, I wanted to be in the back where I could get on the brakes if I had to. So we put him in the back seat. We went up, and he said, hey, so we did a few patterns, all good. He said, let's go up and do some loops and rolls. He hadn't really done any aerobatics. So we went out to an area away from the airport, and I walked him through a loop, and then he did a loop, and then I walked him through a roll, and he did a roll, and we did a few of those. And then he says, I think we should head on back. We turned toward the airport, and all of a sudden, it was like we went through a fog of big insects, splat on the windshield. And then it dawns on me two things. The splat is not being blown by the propeller, and there's nothing in the center. He had projectile vomited.
Oh, no.
Right past my head.
Oh.
Onto the windshield.
And so you were the bullseye then.
And
you were a mess.
So I'm flying along, and I can feel, I hope nobody's eating their dinner right now, but I can feel it running down the inside of my shirt. And I'm trying to just sort of not move my neck and shoulders. And then I'm worried he's got the only brakes. So I said, are you going to be able to use the brakes on landing? And I get kind of a muffled, I think so. And we went back, brought the thing in for landing, had no problems. And then he felt better. And he saw some friends of his, and he hops out and runs off to go tell his friends about his new airplane, and leaves me there just sitting in that hot, muggy hangar, trying not to touch the back of my neck to the inside of my shirt. Everybody has those stories of beautiful flights in their airplanes. This is not one of those. I know people have taken off in worse weather and everything.
But what you did encounter was significant. So let's take a break and give you a chance to get hosed down, and then we'll come back with our debrief and what you learned from these flights. We'll be right back. Not all aircraft insurance policies and premiums are the same. As the only direct writer in the market, Avemco never uses third-party insurance agents, and instead connects you directly with an aviation underwriter in their Frederick, Maryland office, ready to solve problems and approve coverage based on what you fly and how you fly it. Avemco provides lightning-fast quotes, competitive rates, and personalized policies that are easy to read and tailored to you. Call 800-353-9089 for your free quote or visit avemco.com/rider report. Don't forget to tell them you're a Rider Report listener and save 5%. Premium credits are subject to underwriting guidelines, including Avemco recognized training and memberships. Now, back to the Rider Report. We're back with Bob Carlton, who we left with a bunch of vomit going down the back of his shirt at the culmination of a very long, arduous, and potentially dangerous ferry flight in a little old biplane. What did you learn from all of this, Bob?
The most important thing I learned from this is always bring a six sack.
Okay.
So, I don't feel like there were any of those decisions where you say, the weather's really marginal, but we're going to push it. I never felt like we were pushing, but there were a lot of little things that happened that just kept inching things toward, where it wasn't going to be as good.
Potential disaster, maybe?
The only thing that I think would have been a disaster was that ice. Mm-hmm. And looking back on that, I realized I've flown a lot around big weather in the western U.S., but it's usually very well defined. And this was, and we're so high altitude, we don't really get ice storms. We don't have the opportunity to get that really tall, warm layer above a tall enough cold layer to get that super cooled air. That just doesn't happen where I learned to fly. So I'm used to, in a glider, bumping right up against tall clouds where the lift is, knowing that I can always just turn away. I would avoid things like lightning and, super towering cumulus and that sort of thing. But, fairly tall clouds, they're well defined. I'm pretty comfortable with that. What I didn't realize was, with the wind blowing the way it was, that this thing was blowing rain out the top and getting that super cool air that we learned about in ground school. And that one caught me completely by surprise. But when it hit, it was seconds until we were in a real situation. And had I not been that close to the runway, we were going to touch the ground somewhere because the airplane would not climb. And that happened in 20 seconds or 30 seconds. And so that's, if there was any takeaway where I went, this could have turned really dangerous, that was it, is that warm air aloft, cold air below, and the kind of ice that forms is phenomenal. Now, there's people all around the country that go, oh yeah, we all knew about that. But, out where I learned to fly, that was something I hadn't experienced before.
You were getting weather briefings all along the way, but it was different back then, wasn't it?
Yeah, there wasn't internet. There wasn't, you didn't have a GPS that had weather on it. You got a briefing in every place you stopped. You went and looked up I don't even know the names of it now, METARs and TAPs and that sort of thing. And you got some idea what the weather was. You looked at the depictions. And we knew there's a big storm coming, but we also knew that all along our route, about every 30 miles is an airport. We're basically going down Interstate 40, and there's, from Oklahoma City, there's, I can't even think of the names of some of them, Sayre, Elk City, I don't know, there's probably 8 airports between Oklahoma City and Amarillo. So we figured we'll just keep going until we see this thing and get up as close as we can and land.
There's another thing that you talked to me about years ago, after I had actually taken my first trip over the mountains and then come east and hanging around with Matt Youngkin on a trip back. And but you said that you can go over the mountains and fly the Victor Airways, but if you follow the interstate and something happens, you've got someplace to land, not just the side of a mountain.
Yeah, so I went for a flight with Nate Hammond a few days ago in Kentucky.
For those listeners who may not be familiar with that name, Nate Hammond is a very well-known and well-respected airshow pilot. He flies a Super Chipmunk. He does fireworks at night during the big shows at Oshkosh every year and skywriting. He's a great guy and a great pilot.
And I don't know how you guys navigate out there. It was hazy, it's probably 6-7 mile visibility. But there are no landmarks. Every little farm looks like every other farm. Every little hill looks like every other hill. And every little road that twists around between the rivers and things looks like every other. I'm used to flying where we have a mountain. There's always a mountain that's bigger than the rest that will always be to your east or your west or your north or your south or whatever. But there's always these giant landmarks that you can see. But they also create weather of their own, which if you're not used to flying in that area, is something you need to be aware of, especially on the downwind side. But that was where I was comfortable, where a lot of people get uncomfortable. And it was funny that it was the low-level Flatlander stuff that caught me by surprise.
That's a great story, Bob. And if people have an opportunity to see you at an air show, especially in the new sailplane with the 2 jet engines on it, I hope they'll watch you. By the time this airs, I think it's Oshkosh will be over. But if they want to find out more about you and Vertigo Air Shows, I bet you got a website.
Absolutely. It's vertigoairshows.com.
Bob Carlton, thank you so much for being on the Rider Report.
Absolutely. Great to see you, and always have a 6-sec.
As I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, I've known Bob Carlton for many years, but have never heard this story. I'd wager that all of us have a story or two in which good lessons have been learned. And if you've got one, I do want to hear it and possibly use it on an episode. Send a synopsis of your story to me. My email address is rob@avbrief.com. rob@avbrief.com. Let's chat about it. We drop episodes every couple of weeks, so you can hear the first-hand accounts of the flying lessons that sometimes only experience can teach. The Rider Report theme and commercial instrumental music for the podcast was written and performed by Rob Pottorff. For Avemco Aviation Insurance and avbrief.com, I'm Rob Ryder. Catch you next time on The Rider Report.